This section is now when our opponent is getting around towards the north-south position. So this can happen from around the legs passes, can also happen from under the legs passes too, or sometimes even when someone goes through the legs, you might end up bailing into a position like this. So you really want to be good at recovering from here. And we'll just go through a few concepts that are important for this position. The first one is inside positioning. So with my hands and my legs, it's both important. If Ari's arms are on the inside, it's very difficult for me to push away and frame away to recover. So I want to get my hands on the inside here. Okay, so see his hands are on the outside, mine are on the inside. That's going to really give me room to get my legs in. Okay, and obviously the distance of our frames is important as well. So I can, like a straight arm here, for example, here is much better. If I can keep him at this much distance, my legs are going to come in a lot easier than a forearm frame, which is our next best one. Okay, which is where we're gripping over the top of the lat and using our forearms here. Okay, so it's like a grip here, pushing up with your elbows. Then you've got your leg frames too. Okay, so the best would be to have, well, the best is actually to have a foot across. So see my right leg coming across to the left side, knee on one side, foot on the other. This is going to be almost an immediate recovery if we can do this. Next best would be a same side foot, and prior to that it's going to be having our knees and shins in front. Okay, so often what's going to happen is we try to get our upper body frames. It allows our lower body frames to work, and we can build up, making better and better distance and better frames until we can recover from there. There'll be different postures and pressures the person on top might use. Sometimes the person is, kind of backing their legs away. Like they often don't want you to have access to gripping their legs because that can help you to recover. Sometimes they'll be putting a lot of pressure. So sometimes the feet are away and they're trying to get into this gap. Sometimes they'll step in and almost put like a knee on belly to try to get for that gap. And we're going to respond to that a little bit differently. And sometimes they're just trying to like pummel and kind of stay somewhere in between that scenario. Another frame we can use with our hands is on the legs. So sometimes our frames work well when our opponent's kind of hovering over us or we're kind of here. But if you go so far forward, it actually doesn't help me to frame here. It can still collapse my frame down. So I'm actually, a lot of the time when they're that far forward, you're better off framing the legs or potentially the hips, giving yourself space to work your legs through from the leg perspective. So as Ari is moving around towards north-south, we've obviously got our turtle shell spin movement, but we also need to be ready to change frames. And you want to work to get inside positioning as you do that. So how do we go about that? Well, I'm not going to frame here because then Ari is going to get inside positioning on my arm here. Okay, so when you frame, if we go back, Ari's coming around, I'm framing, I'm going to work my hand pummeling inside here so that as he starts to drop down now, I know I've got inside positioning with my arms, and that can work me to recover. So just again, be ready to change your frames if they start getting around. Okay, here I can go on the inside of the arm like that, or if Ari, go back. Ari's very tall here, go lower. Be lower, and I reach inside like this and pummel through. But make sure your hand's not sitting on the outside of the shoulder. They will be able to deflect that. And it's really on both arms that I'm trying to do this. So pass around. Like I want to get inside this arm as well, and I end up with the same thing on both sides.
Here we can see an example of just setting up frames when you realize you're going to be stuck in the north-south position. So Ari blocked my bottom leg and my top leg. He's changed to these north-south grips already. So I can kind of feel I'm a little bit late. I kind of shouldn't have let him get so far deep with his grips, and he's going to end up in the north-south position. So that's when my frames start to look for the inside positioning on the biceps here to preempt that position. So you see I reach underneath the armpit here, and I'm doing the same with my right hand, and that's going to allow my legs to start to work to come back in front. So because I'm on the back foot here, just getting back to here and having to defend an under the legs pass is sometimes a a better option than just getting passed immediately from north-south. So kind of having to get into now the next stage of retention can sometimes still keep you in the game.
One thing we're going to look at from here is the principle of keeping each leg in a different position. So in this scenario here, where Lockie's trying to push both my feet to the floor from the north-south to take my knees away from my shoulders, I'm much better off keeping one leg in a different position to the other leg. So in this case here, I'm looking at bending one leg and straightening one leg. The things that I can look for after I bend or straighten a leg is to slightly turn to one side, so I can either attach my foot across the hip. So if I can take my left foot to the right hip or my right foot to the left hip, or I can look to post on the shoulder or armpit to create a bit of space so that I can then bring my foot to the far hip. In terms of the initial pummeling battle, while Lockie is trying to push my feet to the floor, again, if I try and keep both my legs in the same plane, like so, he can easily push them away, even if I'm having both my heels to my butt here. However, if I start to straighten one leg, and basically do like the leg gap that we were talking about before, I can actually start to pummel and square back up again. Make sure as well in this little pummeling battle here, when you choose to change your legs to one side, if you get stuck, if your opponent's doing a good job in mirroring his grips on your legs, you should always change to the opposite side so that you can square back up. Just a common mistake with the pathway of the leg pummeling. So sometimes what can happen is while people are trying to throw their legs inside, they will have the tendency to throw both legs in at the same time. When we start to bring both legs to the outside, this is obviously quite bad because we're giving our opponent inside position, inside control. So we're always better off having one knee bent and then the other one fighting for control. If Lockie happens to block the leg coming from the outside, I can potentially do something with the leg on the inside. If he blocks the leg that's the knee that's coming to my chest, I can potentially start to swim the other leg inside. Another common mistake that people make while they're trying to retain from this north-south position is as they're trying to shoot their leg across, they let their knee cross over their center line. So now this is basically exposing a guard pass. Even if I do recover from here, if Lockie is to grab my collar with his hand, now when I start to square back up, I'm fighting a deep single underpass. So similar to what we've said in previously in our intro, we always want to make sure our knees don't cross the center line throughout the duration of our guard retention, regardless of the position. So again, always making sure the knee is on the outside, because if it isn't on the outside, it's going to be really bad for us.
Let's take a few looks at the leg dab from north-south. So this is something again that's made a huge difference to my game, implementing this having legs in different planes principle. So here Ari is pushing both feet away. I can't just bring them straight back at him. So I have to swing my legs to the side. I'm framing, and you'll see I swing my legs one side. As soon as they're to the side, this leg fold. So because that leg's folded, this leg should be able to kick back and create some momentum. I think he blocks that, and I end up recovering in a slightly different way, but you can see the leg dab at play. So I use that now, and the more I push with that, it lets me swing my hips back around towards Ari, and I think he kind of runs against the grain of that. So he kind of lets me start to recover and then runs back. and then end up having to recover a slightly different way using a crossover. We'll have an example of myself here again, using the leg dab. So he's pinned my leg, and if I can, I would fold this one up, but I believe it might be my left one that ends up having to fold. So I kind of change feet. Yes, I change feet, and then by extending that foot that's changed, it's letting me spin back toward. Here you'll see a great example with Ari, where I get both legs and I push them away. So you'll see he cannot bring his legs straight back at me, but what he can do is, as soon as he folds the leg, so that leg's folded now, he kicks out with that, and it will spin his hips towards the camera and his head away from the camera, ending up facing me in the guard. There we are. Really good movement to get good at.
So sometimes you'll have your opponent come into a position like this where Ari's put his knee on my chest. And what that allows him to do is kind of stretch his arms out further, and it makes it, stay on my legs. It makes it hard for me to like pummel my legs effectively, because he's got like a good range there. Okay. Now, right now I'm kind of a bit too late, so we're gonna go back just as this is happening, because I'm trying to keep my knees tight, and Ari really steps in and pushes forward, and I'm finding it difficult to actually pummel my feet to where I want. Now, what I'll often do here is a big kind of seesaw. I push back with my legs as hard as I can so that Ari pushes into it, and then I'm gonna sit up and get up with that leg. So I've actually like hooked around the leg. And I've made Ari post his hands on the mat. So you notice how he can't really keep control of my legs anymore. Okay. So once we're up on our elbow, I can start to scoot back and get a leg entanglement and start to tie him up. All right. So if we look at that again in a faster action, Ari comes around, I'm framing, he really comes in, I reach under the leg, I'm trying to get my legs back, I realize I can't, so I sit up, I'm knocking forward, and you have to kind of swing your legs and get up on your elbow. Everything happens at once. So I'm really like rocking. I'm really like rocking and knocking him forward, trying to get his hands to the mat. Once his weight's forward, you can start to scoot back and get back. So common mistakes with our slam dunk style retention here when they go to knee on belly. The most common mistake I think is trying to do it when you haven't tried to just pummel your legs at first. Like by far the most important thing is to pummel the legs, and that's I'm almost always trying to work my frames to go for that. And it's only when Ari absolutely is like really driving forward and I just cannot move my legs. I still need him to think that he's worried about my legs, so he's putting a lot of forward pressure. That's when this movement is going to work. Okay, so that timing where you're really trying to get your legs back and make them commit a lot, and then you can do this. The second common mistake is not doing it with momentum. So for example, if my legs go first and then I try and sit up, I'm gonna give him north-south. If my legs are still here and I'm trying to throw him forward, he's gonna like posture against that and resist. I really have to kind of like rock back and everything goes forward to get up onto my hand in one motion.
Here we have an example of the slam dunk defense. So Ben manages to get around. He pins my leg and manages to get around towards north-south. And you can see from where I am that he's pushed this leg away. So it's going to be very hard he's kind of like too far over the top of me to have a chance at getting that leg back and my other leg's out of the way. So I'm now here going to reach onto this leg and try to bring him forward. So there we are. Just enough to off-balance him. And then there's a scramble ensues, trying to get my legs back in front, which I just get it in front of the leg, which allows me to recover.
sometimes when we're trying to pummel our feet back to the inside from the north-south position, what can happen is, as I'm looking to swim my outside leg back in, if the guard passer catches a really tight underhook and gets the inside control where my leg was meant to go, basically means I can't get my guard back in that initial, with that initial attempt. However, whenever someone covers the space at the hip, they actually open up this little pocket between their tricep and their hip. So it's quite a big gap. Granted that I still have my knee inside, I can actually now look to pummel my foot back into this space here. So what you'll see a lot of the time is sometimes people will try and step on the hip to push back. This is not ideal, especially if my opponent has got really good pressure going into my hips. I can just simply clear my foot off the hip. So when I look to thread this foot through, I'm actually trying to bring this foot all the way through to the far hip. So the first thing we'd be looking to do is we'd try to just square back up from here. However, sometimes our opponent really wants to stick the pass and they continue trying to force force my hips back to the floor. The fact that I have my foot connected to his far hip means that my foot is now not going to slip out. Okay? Obviously, you're going to require a bit more mobility in this position, especially with your foot to chest position. And so usually what we're looking for from here, if our opponent isn't letting go of our hip, we can actually start to attack an armbar from here. So first thing that I like to do is I actually try to attack, it's kind of like a shoulder lock from here. So I'll try to thread the far hip and try to straighten my knee like so. You can see from here I can start to put a lot of pressure on the shoulder, and if my opponent starts to slip his arm out, I can actually start to work for his back. Sometimes what can happen is you're unable to get your knee on the inside, and so essentially you've been passed. But if you can still expose a bit of space at your opponent's belt, you can still frame and bring your leg back inside. So as I'm trying to spin out for the shoulder lock, if my opponent is doing a good job of stopping me spinning out in that particular direction, I can actually look to spin out to the other side. From here, I can start to work a nice arm lock from here. You can also end up putting a lot of pressure on the shoulder as well with this arm lock. Worst case scenario, your opponent manages to pull his arm out, but now you've successfully retained your guard.
All right, so our last line of defense is to turn to our knees and bail and try to attach to our opponent's legs. For this one, be wary that this is the last line of defense. So really try to frame and get your legs back in front first. Only do this if you've really lost position. So, and what I mean by that is particularly with the legs. So if Ari's got his shoulders and head below the line of my knees, where I just know I'm not going to be able to get no matter what I do here, my legs aren't going to get back in front. It's going to be very difficult to frame back. if you're still here, you should be like, if your knees and have a chance to get in front of the shoulders, do that. Okay, so it's also usually, this one is usually from a tripod sort of posture. If Ari drops to his knees to try to finish this pass, I can usually be framing the upper, like my frames on the upper body will be quite strong. Okay, but if he's tripoded and he's starting to beat the line of my legs, I can kind of keep his hips up, and I'm framing the hips for the moment, or maybe the legs, and this gives me a chance to spin. Right now, just like we do with our legs to pummel, we want to go across with our arms, okay? Or at least block the side, particularly on the side that my back is going to be exposed to. So if I'm going to turn to my stomach like this, my back exposes here. Ari can run around, that becomes very bad. So if we go back, one of my right hand here, so the one that's on the far side, is going to have to block him getting around. It can go to the hip here or the leg. So now as I scroll out and he runs around to the back, I've got something to stop that. Okay, see how that stops his access to my back. Or as a second best option, you can even go for the inside leg. Okay, so I reach to here, and if Ari goes around, I'm attached to the leg, and that will also slow or minimize his chance of taking my back. Okay, so we do have to go across with our arm. So my hand, I'm looking to either go across to this leg or potentially to this leg with the arm on the side opposite to which side my back is exposed. Okay, so cross body, just like we do with our leg, where we want to go across body. Okay, now with my legs, don't try to roll to your knees like this. You will expose a lot of your back. Okay, so if I go like this, you see it's like a very slow motion and a large motion to go through. Okay, so by turning, if I just do this by myself, if I turn like this, I'm going to expose a lot of back. Okay, if I can instead kick my legs straight and sprawl out, I've got much more, as he's running to my back, it's an easier time facing the side that he's going to and kicking. Now facing my opponent and having a chance to recover. Okay. Whereas trying to roll like this takes a lot longer before you can actually turn and face your opponent. So Ari's working into position. If he beats the line of my legs, I'm blocking his hips. I swing my arms around, sprawl my feet out, and I'm going to try and attach to the leg. From here, if you're attached to the leg tightly, then you can start building up to a single. If you're attached quite loosely, then you might try to hook then the ankle, blocking his hip until you can trap in some sort of half guard and work to recover from there. When trying to prevent someone from spinning around to the back, it's often better to try to control the shin more so than the knee. So, for example, with my left arm here, if I'm at the knee, this is quite, if Ari sprawls out over this, or that kind of step and kick it, this is going to be like, I start to lose this grip, okay? It's not like as good of a handle as we do the same thing, but I've got the shin, okay? Go for the same move, like go to kick out. You see that's really well hooked, and it stops him actually rotating his body. It puts pressure like against the knee and everything to stop him spinning. Here, he can turn his whole hips and I get taken out of position, okay? And that can occur for the right hand as well. So we tend to look for the shin to prevent them spinning around, and that can help us get back to position. So to summarize our strategy for recovering from a north-south style pass, build your frame. So you need to use your forearms, knees, get your arms straight, We want to eventually get a foot across the body with our knee staying on the same side. Don't cross your knee across the body. You're going to give them an opening to pass. So we put our foot across and we can spin back to recover. We might struggle to do this if our opponent really drives forward, puts the knee on top of the chest. In a scenario like that, we can do our slam dunk and swing our leg over to some sort of leg entanglement or recovery. And if we're really late, they've beaten the line of our legs with their shoulders. Okay, then we're framing the hips, trying to sprawl to our knees and come back up to attach to a leg and get up, or to fall back into some sort of half. Linking the techniques for around the legs passes. So first, we're going to break it up into 4 different stages. We have our pummeling, trying to keep our feet just back in front, and anytime they clear our legs, we work to keep our feet in front. Then we have when our opponent's coming around and we're able to face in towards our opponent, how we retain our guard from here. We have if they've walked further towards north-south, and we have if they've turned us away. Okay, so go back and Ari's turned us away. Okay, and each of these are going to have its own strategy. So for pummeling, we go back to our first one. If you have your feet on the biceps, this stops them going around. If they start trying to do a throw, or if he goes to throw the leg, I'm going to put my foot on the outside. If he goes to go under the legs, I want to pummel my foot underneath the armpit here to stop that. We've got our 4 crossovers. If Ari has cleared my feet, okay? So our first one is to just go towards the near shoulder. So that's a near crossover. We have the far short crossover going to the far bicep. If he really loses, kind of drops his posture down as he throws and he's turned his shoulders, that's when I'm going to go towards the hip and I start to spin through. We also have our high pummel. So if Ari starts to turn my hips, I can't bring my legs straight back for a crossover, we can swing high and work to pummel back from there. And if that's blocked, so if I'm turned again and I can't even bring this back, we can do the under pummel. I bring my inside leg up and I hip out and roll back through to pummel back. So that's our pummel. And then we've got what we do if Ari has kind of clear, it's too late for the pummel. I realize that when he gets around the legs, I'm facing at least in towards him or somewhat in towards him. I don't have to be all the way on my side, but I'm now facing towards him and I realize my feet aren't going to come in. Okay. Now, if this bottom leg is blocked, and that's the one that definitely can't come in, then we can often put our foot to the ground, connect our top leg, and invert through. Otherwise, we use our turtle shell spin. Okay. So generally, actually, I would rather, as I'm getting cleared here, instead of having my leg chase him, I'd rather it start to come up. Okay, so we want our legs in different planes. I'd rather it come up here, so it negates this angle, and as he walks around, we use our turtle shell spin to come around. Once more. As Ari goes around, my leg's coming up, we cross our leg over, and we spin back. If I realize I'm going to get stuck in the north-south position, we then have our options from here. Okay, if I can block under the armpits, work my foot across the body, I can recover. If he gets onto 2 shins here and my feet can't come straight back, then I can use the leg dab. Okay, swing my feet to one side, kick up, or if that gets blocked, I come back the other way, and again, we recover from that. And we have a few other options. If he comes onto a knee on belly, from here we can do the slam dunk and start to take him forward. Or if you're very late and you've missed everything, that's when you want to start turning in and starting to attach to a leg. When we start to get turned away, obviously we first try our pummels, but if they're not working and I know I'm getting turned away, first we have the ultimate gongoa, where I don't put my feet on the mat, and if I really get thrown and turned, then that's when I put my bottom leg on the mat, head comes through, and we do the full gongoa. So think about the different guard passes in those 4 categories. Try to recognize what's happening. It obviously takes a while to learn each of those particular skills, but once you have them, they all work together, and you should really never allow someone to close the gap enough that you have to use a late stage pass retention. So we've covered now how to deal with pummeling our legs and keeping our legs in front of our opponent, what to do if someone passes in front of our legs, and how we can use inverts and spins to recover. We've learned how to deal with the north-south position and recover from there, and we've learned what to do when our hips get turned away. And those are quite general, strategic, and it's a general approach, but it will probably, like, understanding how to deal with each of those will probably account for most of the guard retention scenarios you get put in. But there's also the specific pass types, and each pass type will have its own thing, which is, quite a lot of the concepts we've already covered will apply to that pass type, but there might be some little things that are different that we do to deal with each specific pass type. We suggest you use this section mostly as troubleshooting, as in, you've got someone who's constantly getting the leg drag on you, and then you can go to this section and see how we deal with defending the leg drag. Whereas to get more of a general understanding and work your guard retention in general, our prior section is probably the best part for that.
This low postured bullfighter or shoulder in bullfighter is particularly done with either 2 grips below the knees or a hip and knee hand position. Usually from here, I'm looking to post on the top hip and redirect the bottom hip, leading with my shoulder and chest.
So to defend this style of bullfighter, a lot of the stuff we've covered already. So, I want to keep this gap closed, keeping my knee tight. I can be tracking with my foot, so he has nowhere to actually move in if he does try to open that space. Okay. I want to be framing, and we're just gonna, first off, any of the 4 pummels that we talked about, we can just pummel back with our crossovers and work to recover from there. So that's all really been covered up to here. It does get a little different. For example, if Ari starts to walk around a bit more, then we can start trying to pummel, hook, and invert to roll through. So we have our preemptive framing. This should all work quite well. Where it gets difficult and different is if you miss your frame. Okay, so if Ari's managed to go here and I missed getting that shoulder, okay, now I might have to do something a little different to what we've covered before. Usually if I can, I'm gonna swing over the top and reach to underneath this leg. Okay, so again, as I notice I'm getting redirected, I reach through this gap, get attached to the leg, up on my arm, and I can start working to attach my legs into some sort of half guard and lock up a decent recovery position. Okay. If I've got my frame and I notice I'm getting redirected really strongly, again, we can start working for our ultimate dongoa to get our hips out to recover. So as opposed to the low bullfighter like we did before, sometimes people will come straight to, or look to go straight to a knee on belly. Okay, so they often look to clear this gap between the knee and the chest and step in. Or sometimes they'll make the person frame to the shoulder, remove the shoulder away from the frame, and then bring the leg in and try to consolidate from here.
Looking at the defenses that we can do in order against the knee and belly bullfighter, first thing is to make sure that our feet are hitting the biceps or shoulders. Next thing, obviously if they've cleared the feet, we're trying to pummel either to the inside or to the outside. Next step from there is if they start to clear our bottom leg, we want to make sure we're facing towards our opponent. The first thing we can look to do, if we're facing towards our opponent, we can start to invert through on our bottom leg that has been cleared. they start to clear this leg and redirect, we're looking to frame and gondola out to redirect our hips. If you feel like your opponent's posture is too high to frame on their shoulder, we're going to frame the next closest thing, which in this case is his right shin. If we miss all of these options and our opponent starts to get to knee on belly, we can start to bring our top foot back to the waist or stomach of our opponent. Just be careful with the Estima lock. You can use the top foot to bump our opponent back and recover our bottom leg. If we're having trouble bumping our opponent back to bring our bottom leg in, we can sometimes spin inside to lock up a 50-50. The next thing we can look to do is, as our opponent is starting to bullfighter, we can actually preemptively enter the 50-50 by spinning in towards our opponent. So it should look like this. One common mistake a lot of people do when they try to enter the 50-50 from the knee on belly position is that they simply just lift their legs up. They don't actually bring their hips out. So if I just try to invert like so, it's going to be quite hard for me to enter the 50-50. If I really take my head to the inside and bring my hips on the outside, it should be really easy for me to enter the 50-50 container.
This example is actually from a knee through pass, but we end up outside the legs, and you'll see a late stage knee on belly escape. So this time I'm in a little deeper. I see I've blocked, my hips are low enough that it's hard for Ari to get this leg underneath my hips. If he could, he would go the 50-50 escape, and I'm in too deep and forward for him to come back in front of that leg too. You can see my knees kind of quite far in front. It'd be hard to get this leg back in front of my hips. So Ari's going to turn away and recover. So he turns, he's going to use the gongoa action and recover.
Basic bullfighter to north-south, pulling the knees away from the chest, redirecting the legs and running towards the head and pushing the legs to the floor.
So our first defense should be to pummel our feet in front, and that'll prevent Ari from making an angle on us. If he does start to run around towards north-south, our turtle shell spin should be our first line of retention. It's only if that starts to fail that we do all the content that we talked about in that north-south section. So Ari's starting to get around now. Maybe I missed for a moment. I can start to try to frame, work to get inside positioning, work to get my foot across the hip to recover. We can be pummeling using our leg dabs, left or right, whatever we can to get our feet in front. We work through our layers of the frames. So we work from elbows to knees, extending with the knee, going towards the cross hip to recover. If he goes to the knee on belly style position, we do our slam dunk retention. And if we're very late with this, then we start to sprawl, turn to our knees and work to recover from it. So we're going to cover retention from the one arm throw, which is basically, I managed to clear grips for a moment. So both, that one leg's out of the way, I reach to the outside of the other, and I throw the leg across. Usually when I'm doing this, I'm trying to run around, beat the hips, and start trying to get to the far lapel and establish good control. Although sometimes we also just cover if people tend to more throw the leg and move this way, which is less common because it's less. I don't get the angle I want, but I've got to try to deal with that as well.
The very first thing we can do to prevent a one-arm throw from happening is to actually change our foot from the inside of the bicep to the outside of the forearm. This will prevent the throw by from happening because my opponent's forearm is stopping my leg from getting thrown across my body. Just be careful though, now we've kind of given our opponent inside space for a bullfight pass. The next thing we can look to do is, as our opponent is looking to hit the one-arm throw, if we're early enough, we can do a short crossover and recover. If we are late enough that our opponent is actually attacking the one-arm throw, we're going to have to use our gongo variations. So the very basic one, our foot has hit the floor, and we're taking our head towards our toes and squaring back up. Next one is the ultimate gongo, where our foot doesn't hit the floor, so Rocky throws my leg, frame, and square back up. We really want to make sure that we throw our hips really far outwards, pushing our butt outwards so that our hips can beat our opponent's hips. Make sure as well that your hips don't go too high for the sake of defending the next pass that your opponent can attack, which is usually an under the legs pass. So don't end up like this. Make sure you get your hips low to the floor. Always be aware of where your opponent is running to off the one-arm throw. Usually our opponent is going to run towards this side, but there is the chance that they can run to the other side as well. In the event that our opponent does happen to run towards the incorrect side of the one-arm throw, we have to invert all the way through. The next variation of the around the legs pass we're going to be looking at is the crazy dog pass or cross grip pass. So I can either have my arm weaved through the legs, or I can just isolate the bottom leg. I'm trying to pin one leg to the floor and then get some kind of upper body control, whether it's a sleeve, a collar, or hug the head. Once I'm here, I'm trying to stretch out my opponent and connect my hip next to his.
So first thing to defend this is don't let them get the cross grip. So if we go back, if I'm pummeling well, I'm blocking this leg, or I can even thread if he's going for that. Often if we thread through and underneath, that can if he reaches for it now, that's difficult to work for. The next thing is just try and get your foot on the outside. It could be outside of their arm or outside of their leg. So I'll go cross grip. If Ari gets that, I still try to pummel. I definitely want my free leg to come in front to some degree. But if I can put my foot, pulling my knee to my chest, opening out, and put it over the top of this outside arm, if Ari tries to run around now, that's difficult. And if I can square my hips to the other side, he's basically lost ability to pin my leg, which is what was really important. Okay, so Ari's looking to pin my leg, like so. Before he's pinned my leg, if I can pull my leg up, hip out, have it on the outside of his arm, or come closer, I can get it sometimes on the outside of the hip if need be to hip out. I can usually strip that grip and I'm free. Another thing, if you are feeling like it's being pinned and you don't have your other leg in position, for example, you can start to invert through to reset that and stop them pinning. So as he's pinning that leg, we can almost reach under our own shin to stop it getting pinned. Bring my hips under, and once we're here, we do this curl That's a strong hamstring curl to pull away as I change feet and retract my leg. After that, once that leg's getting pinned, for me it's really about not letting Ari attach to the upper body here. If he attaches to this, it's going to make my invert hard, which is going to be my next phase of my retention. Because if I start trying to invert, this can block and it can become a cross face and it gets worse and worse. Okay, so we're keeping our upper body away and preventing Ari from attaching to my upper body. So he's reaching, and at the same time I'm still looking to pummel this foot in here or towards the far armpit is good too. Once you've blocked that arm and you see an avenue to work through, you can work the invert. So I can push off the ground now, my leg's pinned, so I can put that foot on the ground, throw my head through, and that resets the position by using the invert. The last stage for this is when Ari has attached quite strongly to my upper body. I might have some frames in, but this is getting bad. I'm not going to be able to invert through this. I usually until I can free that leg, I'm in trouble. So I often like to step my foot right to the grip, right where the hand is, and do a push-pull. Okay. Now that I've got that, I start looking for this pummel with this inside leg position here, moving my hips away. Now, tucking my head in and trying to invert back to retain my guard. All right, we're going to be covering the leg drag. So that's where we're essentially dragging the leg past our body and looking to attach to our opponent's hips. We'll just differentiate that from the stacked leg drag, which is kind of almost a different position where people work to get from here. Okay, we'll cover that more in the under the legs section. So usually the phases for the leg drag, first the person's looking to pull the leg, like the heel past the line of their hip, turning your opponent to face away from you, and looking to then clear the knee line, and then looking to bring their armpit past the knee line so this knee can't escape, and then looking to attach, close the distance, and pass from there.
To defend the leg drag, we're going to be breaking it down into multiple stages. With the early stage defense of the leg drag, we're just looking to turn onto our side, turning our hips out to use the hyper. So, a short crossover or a far crossover. Once I pummel my foot to one of the shoulders, I can use a push-pull to retract my initially leg dragged leg to recover back to the biceps. The deeper I go into the leg drag, the more I'm going to have to high pummel. Now, once I high pummel, again, my aim is to get my foot to either the near or far shoulder, sometimes even the chest. My goal from here is to, again, push-pull, pulling my trapped knee and recovering back to the biceps. Sometimes what can happen is when you're really deep in a leg drag and your hips have been quite turned away, you can still use the high pummel motion, assuming your bottom leg is free. Notice I have a frame on this shoulder coming close towards my chest to make sure that he can't close the distance. Sometimes you're going to have to use the elbow if you're really late. Now, for this foot to chest position to work, you have to be able to free your bottom leg so that you can turn from your left hip to your right hip. Like, again, if you're really late and your opponent is a bit lower, like so, and you can still free your bottom leg, you can do the exact same thing. Obviously, it's going to require a lot more mobility. Turning in, framing the outside of your knee, pushing away and retracting your bottom leg. If we get to a point where we're actually having trouble freeing our bottom leg, and our opponent, before where our bottom leg is trapped, if we're trying to bring our top foot back in and our opponent is really trying to block this leg, he can either be using a C grip or maybe he's still got the collar grip And as he sees that you're trying to bring the foot in, he's flaring his elbow. He's now opening up space for us to recover the bottom knee. So again, he's quite low. We're trying to bring the foot in. He's blocking. I can recover the bottom leg and square back up. Sorry, top leg. Yeah, top leg. Top leg. From this deep leg drag position where our top knee is completely separated and we can't bring our top knee back in, our goal is to invert all the way through so that we can make our bottom leg light. With my frame punching in the throat, this can buy me a bit of time and also a bit of space for me to invert my hips. I'm going to use an underhook on this ankle here to help pull myself all the way through. And now, because my leg is light here, it's easier for me to change my bottom knee position from connected to his shin to now my hook connected to his shin. Here, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take my hook above his knee so that I can now enter a 50-50 position. As you can see here, because I have this hook that's stepping on his hip, now if he starts to pressure into me, I actually have a bit more leverage to push him away. And now I can start to gable grip and pull my opponent into a 50-50 position. If my opponent is putting a lot of focus into pinning my bottom leg and putting heaps of pressure through the bottom leg, I can start to use my top knee to off balance it. So I can try and flare my top knee as I pull my knee to my chest, loading him up and turning away.
Now we'll look at some leg drag defense. The first one is just the simple crossover. So you'll see as Ari goes to leg drag in a moment here. So he's throwing my leg past to get the leg drag. He's going to want to try to reach towards my far collar here. And I'm framing the shoulder, and that will allow me to cross over like so to the shoulder and recover from there. Here, Ari, with the leg drag, I'm trying to use the high pummel. So I'm reaching under my leg, trying to square get that angle to be able to chop inside the forearm. And in doing so, Ari has to commit too much to that leg, and it's able to free my bottom leg. So you see here, as I'm trying to get that back, he's holding that, and then it allows my bottom leg, as he tries to clear it, to come free. I go for the leg drag. Ari is going to frame, make room, because my shoulder came close, he makes room with that first, with his hand. And then there's enough room as he frames me away. So it's kind of like a two-arm frame, has got my shoulders far enough away that he can then start to hold just with the one-arm frame as his high pummel comes in over the top. I'm going to clear that again, and he frames again and goes for the high pummel, grips his own leg to assist, and then that high pummel chops in. Once it's in on the inside of my bicep, it's going to be very hard to hold this position, and Ari is going to recover. Here, Ben goes in for the leg drag. I think he actually overcommits, but the off balance has been a big part of just getting his hands to go to the mat. So as soon as he kind of committed in, I managed to bring this knee up and kind of knock him forward. And with that off balance, it's going to be difficult to stabilize. And you'll see he kind of falls off. So if we have a look at that again, as he comes in, that off balance this direction, combined with his forward momentum. But that's generally the direction we go if they have a lot of forward momentum.
This is a pass you'll occasionally see some people use. It's like quite an old school version of the bullfighter pass where the guy passes trying to pull the top knees away from the shoulders, planting the feet on the floor, walking around the legs, dropping the shoulder down towards the chest.
So first thing, to stop your legs, obviously we don't want our knees separated from our chest, so that's the main thing about defending this pass is keeping your knees attached towards your shoulders, and if your knees are being pulled away from the shoulders, then follow with your shoulders. But beforehand, if I just place my legs in the right spot, so I put my feet over the top, not pushing into the biceps. If I'm pushing into the biceps and Ari moves away, that I lose it. If I feel like he's moving to work towards backwards, I actually want to be hooking over the forearms and pulling my knees back and down. Okay, so try and strip my feet, and it's going to basically pull me with him. Okay, or you could obviously have your feet over the top as well, and this is going to make it difficult too, but that's going to change your position. Okay, so assuming we're here, pulling back. Now, if Ari does manage to slip my feet and he's walking back, I'm going to want to follow with my shoulders, so start to pin my legs, and I'm going to want to frame just lower than the shoulder, so not right up here, just a tad lower, like so. Okay, making as much distance between my hips and my arms as possible. Once you've got that position, you should be able to quite easily reset by getting an angle. I can't fall straight back and bring my legs in, but if I fall to the side, I can pull my foot from the inside, like an under pummel, add onto the bicep, and we can go back to our position and then start to set up our attack. So very simply, framing both shoulders, falling to the side, going with an under pummel, and then working our feet back in, making it difficult for our opponent to work that same attack. As a late stage to this, because occasionally maybe you lost concentration for a moment and they pulled your knees from your chest and they started to close the gap. Okay. Usually if this happens, what I don't want Ari to do is get like a control above the line of my hip with his arms. Okay. If we just turn, you see Ari's gripping down near the pants, and he's going to want to then like work up towards the hips. Now, this is now bad for me. Okay, if he gets above the line of my hip. So to make it difficult for him to work up, I'm going to sit up like this and scoot my hips back, reaching over his far hip myself. Okay. From here, I can scissor my feet. Hold on to my leg though. So I scissor my feet, I can come up into a sprawl, and that can work potentially into a back take. If Ari's pinned the legs, I sit up and I reach the far hip. But this time I'm trying to sprawl my legs out behind me, but he's driving a lot of forward pressure into my legs. So now it's very hard to move my legs. I can often try to roll underneath for a sweep here. See, he's got like his hips are coming over the top of his shoulder. If I pull his hip towards me and grab that leg so that he can't step out, so I grab the shin, now he's got no base, okay? I do a back roll, and I often come up on top or into a sprawl again. Like Ari might chase down like a double leg here, but I've got a good sprawl, and I can start working towards taking the back from there.